Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License Flight number 72 with service to South Korea and an undisclosed island. We ask that you please fasten your headphones, secure your podcasting device, and remember, if you see gases coming from the air vents, don't worry. Also, don't concern yourself about all of our flight attendants wearing masks. Oh, you're feeling sleepy? That's weird.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Jeff Curvis, joined by Max Singer and Rich Inman. How you boys doing today?
Oh man, jealous. I wish I could sleep on an airplane.
Yeah, the gas is currently a 3 milligram edible that's knocking me out.
Oh my god.
Do you think Spirit flies to undisclosed Murder Island?
Yeah, it's their hub.
Well, no, if you want to go to the non-murder island, it's an extra $15, Rich. I just want to make sure you know that.
Ooh, that's pretty steep on Spirit.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, boys, this week we are kicking off our International TV Show Month. And we decided to start with something that's a little bit of a hit. You might have heard of it.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. It's called Squid Game. And I'm really excited to dive into this with y'all, but maybe for folks who have just found us, Max, do you mind telling them what this podcast is about?
So here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn a little bit more about how these shows came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilot episodes of making us want to watch more, and if we think they can be made today. Go back and stream our other episodes wherever you get podcasts from. Check us out on YouTube to see our smiling faces. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard.
And Rich, usually you come in with a little bit something extra. What is your question of the week?
Yeah, I would say let's get the conversation started with, this is probably... I'm trying to think back now. Might be the highest watch show internationally or like globally that we've covered so far.
Wait till you hear these numbers.
Oh, God. So if you're listening to this, there's a really good chance you've seen the show in its entirety already. Obviously, the show is centered around, kids' games with extremely high stakes, life or death consequences. I would love to know, what is the game from your childhood that you would feel most like equipped to risk your life for?
Ooh. So, boys, I know this might come as a surprise to you, but I was not an athletic child. I was what many would call an unathletic indoor kid. So,
I mean, personally, that is a little shocking to me as a personal trainer, but
yeah, yeah.
Do we need to bleep this part out for your clients?
No, they know. I'm very good at lifting weights and putting them down.
Building that Warcraft body.
Yeah. So as far as I like to think of like, okay, what in my current state, because, Squid Games, they're not being brought back to childhood state. They're playing as adults. What do I think I could beat my nearest neighbor at? And I think it's tag. I think that when it comes to tag, I am ready to just dominate the situation. I don't know how it's going to be Squid Game-ified in this instance, but I think that or Red Rover, that's just a game where you're set to break someone's arm. And I think that, in my current state, I could hypothetically break a group of people's arms by running through them.
Were you at a banned Red Rover elementary school, or were you cool?
Oh,
Wait,
no.
What?
So, yeah. Oh, Rich, there were schools where, if they saw you playing Red Rover, they were like, stop right now, immediately, because someone's going to get a concussion.
Oh, no. We got really high test scores, so they kind of left us alone. We got to do whatever we wanted.
Max, what about you? I'm curious.
I mean, I think the name of this game sets it up to be a perfect Squid Game competition, and I'm going with Knockout.
Oh, that's a great choice.
The fast-paced basketball free throw shooting bonanza. I definitely think that trying to knock out your opponent Squid Game style would get incredibly violent. It would turn into full-on hack-a-shack down in the low post, just absolutely destroying people. I'm not a big dude down low. I'm not an enforcer in the paint, but I do have enough faith in my free throw shooting ability to be able to make it through the competition.
Now, I think there's an element of, you have to like be able to snag a rebound on that, because if you're the person behind, also I imagine the sweating that would occur when you realize that free throw is for your life. But you can throw the ball as soon as the last person shoots, right?
Every
You can
free
like
throw
go and
is for your life, Rich.
God damn it.
I just remember when we were in our fraternity house, there were people where if they knew they were worse than the person that was behind them and both of them missed the shot, they'd throw the ball across
Yeah.
the street
I
so
was
that
gonna
they
say.
would automatically win, which is the worst version. But I also think we'd see in Squid Game and also be like, yep, that's exactly what I would do. Just get the ball as far away from them as possible.
Living in a fraternity house, every day is Squid Game.
Yeah, exactly. Rich, I'm genuinely curious about yourself. What is your childhood playground game that you would play for your life?
Oh, I went off playground for this one. I'm going backyard baseball. Just sit us all down at a computer.
Just sit.
I'm taking you yard. I have also you figure out how to like steal bases constantly by like goading people into throwing the entire time, and you can end up running up the score like 70, 80 to nothing, stuff like that. I also, I got a couple tricks up my sleeve. You got Pablo Sanchez, of course, but you also got to get Frank Thomas. Frank Thomas is a
100%.
power hitter who can also somehow pitch in that game. I have to go. Backyard baseball.
It's amazing how many of the child versions of athletes in backyard baseball, when they introduce MLB players, are like all in trouble for steroids or just become like the worst people imaginable. Like the idols that we had for our like kid versions were Kurt Schilling, Roger Clemens, Jose Canseco, Barry Bonds, Sammy Sosa, Mark McGuire, Alex Rodriguez.
It really is like
allegedly.
2001 is a fascinating time in baseball history to make a game featuring childhood heroes that were about to become part of the what was the name of the lab again?
Balco.
Yeah, sure. Balco Labs.
Oh yeah, the Balco Lab congressional trial. Also, have you guys been following the news item right now that Peter Thiel and a couple other investors are trying to make an Olympic Games where you can do whatever PEDs you want?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm ready for it. I'm gonna watch it. I'm not even gonna lie.
Patreon.
I'm not proud of myself. I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, exactly.
Follow our Patreon so we can get Jeff some horse steroids.
Yeah, exactly. I want to compete. Like, put me in. Well, Rich, thank you for that question of the week. Let's talk a little bit more about Squid Game, and we'll start off with a quick synopsis. Hundreds of cash-strapped players accept a strange invitation to compete in children's games. Inside, a tempting prize awaits with deadly high stakes, a survival game that has a whopping 45.6 billion won prize at stake. Just in case for our audience, if you're not aware of the current, rate of transfer between US dollar and won, it's about $35 million at this current point in time.
That's been Jeff's Forex corner. Stay tuned for more investment tips.
Yeah, this is brought to you by the Google search bar. Google, they know things. Max, do you mind telling us about things you know about how this show got made?
Yeah, today we're talking about Squid Game, aka Calamari Caper, aka the Centipede Decathlon.
Wow.
Oh my God.
That last one sounds like an Action Bronson song. So we are talking about the pilot episode of Squid Game titled Red Light, Green Light, which originally debuted for streaming on September 17th, 2021 on Netflix. And we're going to be talking about the show's creator, Hwang Dong-hyuk. Hwang was actually named to Time's 100 most influential people in the world, but before that, he had an illustrious career as one of the highest grossing directors in South Korea before achieving international fame with Squid Game. After coming to the U.S. to pursue his MFA in film at USC, he returns to Korea and finds critical and box office success with films like My Father, Silenced, Miss Granny, and The Fortress. But Squid Game's origins actually began as another scripted feature he wrote back in 2008. Inspired by Japanese survival manga he read growing up and his family's own financial struggles, he wrote this script about a real high-stakes competition in line with manga like Battle Royale and things of that
Mhm.
sort. And every single studio, despite his success, shot down this feature, saying that it was overly grotesque and entirely unrealistic. And the project sits dormant for years. Well, a decade after he writes that script, Netflix opens up temporary Asian offices in Seoul where Huang secures a meeting and sells his scripts because they have people in development who are familiar with his films and they want to get the rights to distribute those on Netflix internationally. They decided to reconfigure his feature into a miniseries, originally 8 pieces. The last episode becomes so long they decided to split it into 9, which is actually kind of a rarity for Netflix.
Mhm.
And an interesting fact is Netflix actually initially renamed this show Round 6. They feared that Squid Game, despite having familiarity in Korea, would fail to click with audiences abroad unfamiliar with the childhood game. Wong felt the name would be read as cryptic to those who didn't know the game, and luckily, Netflix agreed, because otherwise we'd be talking about Round 6.
Which I don't. There's so many things going against this show. I would say until you hit the pandemic lockdown, and this is like, I don't think the only other show that I can like equate this to really is Tiger King. Of just like, we're all home, everyone's going to talk about it. This is like, we have this like monstrously popular show from Korea. I don't know how much people would have sat down to watch it without that like ability and time.
What I'll say to that point, though, is things like Tiger King drops in, I want to say
Yeah.
like March of 2020.
Yeah.
And you obviously you have ESPN moving up The Last Dance, which is supposed to air after the NBA Finals, and they decided to move it into
What
March
a
as well, just to
banger.
put content on TV.
So smart.
And this is something that aired, a year and a half into the COVID era, and is definitely a more challenging thing to sit down to. Not that it's like a difficult show to grasp, but like it is heavy. It deals with real financial disparity and wealth inequality and just heavy subject matter. To quote Bong Joon-ho when he won the Golden Globe, like once you get over the 1-inch barrier of subtitles, you open up an entire world of art to you. And I think that many people became obsessed with a show and like they didn't view that as a barrier and they like watched it anyways. Like that's way more impressive than anything Joe Exotic ever did.
Yeah, and there's also, I think a key theme of this is wealth disparity, which also is like pretty thoroughly discussed in Parasite too. So I think there are like parallels of like what people want to watch, what people are going to resonate with, and I don't know if you guys read The Most Dangerous Game in like middle school and stuff like that, but like, I don't know, I think it's a pretty captivating like timeless concept of like people hunting humans for sport, and there's nothing more like gambling than that.
I think it's one of my favorite movies that I've ever seen was Battle Royale, in all honesty. It's such a
It's great.
When it comes to film and the timeless concepts, survival of the fittest is something that we can all relate to. It's something that we all like, at least many people have it in the back of their brain of like, could I beat that person if my life depended on it?
And I think young American audiences, though, also resonate with these dystopian kind of thrillers. You look at like the 2010s, you had Hunger Games, which was absolutely massive. You had Divergent, which was really massive, and then somehow it just trailed off into the night with barely a whimper. They were going to do the last part as a TV movie, and the entire cast refused to sign on for it. And never
there
got
was
made.
Maze Runner, which
The
had
Maze Runner
multiple
franchise.
movies.
Yeah, like there were so many of these like young dystopian competition world type things that like gripped audiences. So yeah, I think there was background context that you could understand. Like even if the big stuff went over your head, you understood the murdery parts.
So I love this conversation we're having, but let's bring it to this episode, this pilot that
Jeff's
we
like, but we
watched.
got to keep it moving.
You know, I can only keep people's attention so much.
Jeff is going to die if we go over 1 hour on this episode.
There's a timer going right now.
Oh my god. Well, so this show, we talk a lot about cold opens on this show and the importance of how they set the tone, they set the expectation. Sometimes they are 20 minutes long on a 40-minute show, and we all ask why. I think this was such an interesting, artistic, yet succinct way of introducing, you know, especially for an American audience who isn't familiar with the Squid Game, but even more importantly for a Korean audience who is. Let's just talk about a children's game for a second and talk about the joy of victory in watching these children play the Squid Game.
I'll tell you, I would have been rocking their shit on the playground in my youth. This combination of Foursquare, Red Rover, and Tag, I am absolutely sending a kid home in a sling if I'm playing Squid Game.
Yeah, they're exercising a lot more control, or they're just like way better at dealing with pain than we were as children, because this would go so much faster than Red Rover if we're talking about bands.
So after this explanation of the Squid Game, we have our cold open. We meet our protagonist in this show. And I'm just going to say it off the top that if there are mispronunciations, we definitely apologize. Unfortunately, none of us are native Korean speakers. But in this instance, our protagonist is Ji-hoon, otherwise known as Song Ji-hoon. And we instantly get some semblance of an idea that this is a man who is in trouble when it comes to money, does not have much, if any at all, to his name, and because of this is living with his grandmother, it appears, or mother.
Yeah.
And just
I think it's his mother.
It's his mother, and he's in the dumps. Like, he's really a bit of a lowlife.
We spent the first 18 minutes of this show just absolutely shitting on our protagonist.
Yeah, he has some like pretty bad impulse control when it comes to money. There's a lot of like, obviously it's a lot of gambling, but clearly you can see as it develops further that this has been going on for quite some time before we are even introduced to him. And I really do think that like, yeah, I mean, like you do have to set up the main person's like demand or like the absolute imperative that he play this game, because I don't think a lot of people would sign up for this if they like kind of needed money. This would be like, oh, I am falling apart. I might lose my daughter entirely. I'll never move out from my mom's house, like that kind of stuff. It was dire.
It was a very interesting way of setting up. And I think like I really, I give all the commendation I can to the director and the writer of showing addiction when it comes to gambling. And the inability to control oneself when it comes to these...
Don't talk about playing the ponies like it's that bad of a thing.
Okay, Max, I'd love to hear...
Max, show us your phone screen right now.
Yeah. Max has 2 screens up. One is in Japan with all the horse races going on right now.
Let he who's never gone to OT be on a weekday afternoon cast the first.
Man, your Connecticut's showing real hard right now.
Yeah, so, 2 sides. Right. One, I do think we can say that this show does do a great job of showing like the dark side of gambling and the dark side of addiction to gambling and how it can get you in trouble. But also, Max, low-key, when I was watching them do horse racing, I was remembering my first time experiencing horse racing, and I was like, yeah, this is a lot of fun. Like, it's good times.
Ji-hoon is down so bad that he calls a horse a dumbass at one point when it doesn't win the race.
Hell yeah.
There's a track out here in LA, Santa Anita, and they keep doing races there, but like horses keep dying there.
Yeah,
like, so many horses keep dying, like by the dozens. And it's really troubling. But what's even more bizarre is they keep doing these promo tie-ins with the food festival Smorgasburg that's like out here in like LA and in New York, and it's like it's fried chicken day at Santa Anita. Like, come on by, we've got like 6 Smorgasburg vendors all doing fried chicken sandwiches, and you get like a really good meal and a free beer and a betting voucher, and then the curtain comes out onto the track.
Oh my God.
Well, I mean, it's doing wonders for the artisanal glue market out here.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Like, I will say this. Like, I remember, and quick story time. My first time going to a horse track was I was 11 years old, and there was a kid who I went to.
How in debt were you at 11?
You started late for growing up in Florida.
Yeah. There was a kid.
Dogs are young. Dogs are young. Horse is a gentleman's game.
No, the horses are all 3 years old.
So there was a kid I went to elementary school with whose birthday party was at the horse track. And then they gave us all basically like Monopoly money to bet on these horses with. And whoever had the most money left at the end of the day got to pick from a variety of different prizes, right?
Pack of smokes.
So I got
J. Roger.
Your boy won. I didn't pick a losing horse the entire day. And I'll just give a small throwback. I got the Chicken and Beer Ludacris album as my prize, and that is such a win in my life that I was just like, yeah, that's I from that day on, and as you both have seen, I thought I was a great gambler. I'm not a good gambler.
Max, you can keep your knockout. Jeff's playing horse over here.
So all right, we should probably get back to the plot.
Yeah, I mean, this has been brought to you by DraftKings. This segment could have been brought by you, but let's move forward a little bit.
Yeah, the betting's not the only thing getting off track.
So we see the highs and lows of sports gambling because our protagonist wins about 4 million won after doubling down in this instance, using the last of his money. He hits the trifecta. I'm not going to go into what that means, but I am going to say that when someone feels you almost get that winner's high from this moment. It's so well acted. And then immediately, like, he's calling his daughter whose birthday it is, like, we're going to celebrate. We're going to do what do you want? What's the gift you want? Where do you want to go to dinner? And then nearly immediately, he is met with the consequences of his history by his loan shark going right after him. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't even say really beating him up that much, but to the point where the audience gets, this is a serious situation.
Yeah. And you know, we do talk about, like, you know, his absolute need to be in the Squid Game competition at a certain point, but you also do get, like with almost every pilot we talk about, this is where the core competency of the protagonist comes in. Number one, he can talk himself out of a lot of situation. He's very persuasive. He's very diligent. He's very, like, you know, he can stick with it. I mean, that alone, plus like taking an absolute beating and staying on his feet, you get to see like where he's going to, or why he's going to keep going in the actual Squid Game itself. Like, you are rooting for him at a certain point, but it's, you know, I think in comparison to something like Uncut Gems, you start to like really lose faith in like this person's ability to keep it together. And I feel like you don't really hit that point yet with Ji-Hung. And I think like you are actually rooting for him at the end, whereas like Uncut Gems, you're kind of like, oh, this person's like a waste.
Max, what about you when you're seeing Ji-Hun face the consequences of his actions?
I mean, there's so many moments throughout this though where I just let out the disappointed mother side, just like I'm not mad at you, Ji-Hoon. I'm just disappointed because it's so simple. All he has to do is, you know, walk away in that moment and not flaunt, not get cocky, and it's like just like be present and be a dad. And I think the two things that kill me, obviously, like him getting threatened by loan sharks to get his eyeball and kidney ripped out, and having to sign a binding contract. Also, the I didn't know like these like loan sharks went to law school or were like paralegals because they have like nicely drawn up paperwork for him to sign and like initial here, I'm gonna take your kidney, you fucking piece of shit, initial here.
To be fair, the eye and the kidney are some of the tastiest parts of the scumbag.
The most down bad part, I think, for me is when he's now down to his last few won, and he's trying to play a claw machine to just get any sort of present for his daughter.
This is so funny. This is such a funny scene.
It is humorous how they spin it into like him helping like a little kid who's a claw game hustler like win a prize for him. But it's like he is sinking so low. Like he is getting to such a depth already, and we haven't even really hit our inciting incident.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a... I think we, at least I myself, finally felt bad and for our protagonist when we saw his daughter, right? We saw this birthday meal with his daughter where it's like, oh yeah, we're at a street vendor. No shame on street meat. That's a great birthday for me. But like, and then you hear that his daughter from his estranged wife, they went to, a steak restaurant. She's obviously hiding a secret. She had a birthday celebration before her dad, and she's putting up a facade. And she even looks at her dad and is like, oh, well, yeah, you're sort of the fuck up I can lie to.
The claw machine birthday present, though, is such a funny reveal.
Yes, 100%.
Oh my God. When, especially, I mean, it has to have like a different feeling when you're in another country that's not as gun crazy as we are, because like owning a gun in Korea or like Japan or plenty of Asian countries is like, whoa, straight to jail.
Yeah.
It's like you can't just like wave that around.
Spoiler alert, it's a gun.
It's a gun lighter, just to make sure we're not...
Yeah, I'm keeping that thing on me this Hanukkah.
Yeah, she's staying strapped for her birthday. And, who among us as Americans didn't get a gun for their, 8th birthday? I think this is a pretty standard gift. I think it's I think it's a pretty natural fit for a kid's birthday. But yeah, I mean, we were just watching this person get like extremely shifty with their actions, get absolutely beat down. We needed this moment of levity so badly. We needed it so bad. It's crazy.
So after this moment, after this, he drops his daughter off. I think we get to see a man reach full desperation in this moment in the train station, right? He misses a train. He's sitting down and he's approached by a man who's extremely well dressed with a suitcase or a briefcase, excuse me. And we'll just call this man the recruiter from this moment on. But this man has a very simple proposition, which is they're going to play another childhood game of sorts that consists of flipping another person's envelope. And if Ji-hoon wins, he gets 100,000 yuan, 100,000 won, which is about, for our audience, $75. Max,
I could tell that this was a feature that got adapted into a TV series because we get this inciting incident like exactly at the 18-minute mark. Like I paused it to be like how far along in? I'm like 18 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, like this is like page 18 or 19 in that original feature script. Like I don't think this was changed at all. I think everything may have been flushed out after, but I feel like this could have been the exact first 20 pages of that script from 2008 to get to this moment at this exact time.
Max, for the people who are listening, can you talk about like what an inciting incident is and like why that's needed in a pilot?
Yeah, so an inciting incident is the moment in your script where something happens to your protagonist that sends them on their hero's journey or like sets the plot into motion. So everything leading up to this is going to be exposition and understanding Ji-hoon's given circumstances. And this moment, this introduction, the giving of the business card is what sets forth what is Squid Game.
It's kind of like the moment where he can't say no to his eventual destiny in the show.
It's the destiny. It's like the beginning of the hero's journey officially.
Got it. Thank you.
So we proceed to see that, the initial idea is, hey, if you win, you get $75, but if I win, I get $75 from you. We as the audience know that there's no money to be given to this recruiter. So instead they decide, hey, if you lose, I get to slap you in the face. Very simple. And
we're playing for slappers, baby. Let's do it.
I'm genuinely curious from both of you. How many times do we think that Ji-hoon got slapped in the face before he inevitably, and spoiler alert, won $75?
Too many, in my opinion. Like for my personal taste, but Max and I watched this together actually yesterday, and I think at some point we're like, are like the envelopes loaded? Are like, oh, did we explain 100%. What the game was?
So it's you take a loaded envelope. I have one right here, and then you throw it as hard as you can on the ground to try to hit another envelope to flip it.
It's like full force tiddlywinks. It's like
exactly.
And they're playing Pogs. They're playing Pogs is what they're doing.
Basically.
Is that what Pogs was?
Yeah, the recruiter, you got the metal one called the Slammer, and then you gotta throw it at the ground, and you gotta flip the Pogs over.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that this entire massive global TV show
is based off of Pogs.
It's based off of Pogs. We've already done Alf, and he's back in Pog form.
Yeah. So after Ji-hoon eventually wins, and the recruiter gives our pitch, right? Very simple. You could win a lot more money by playing children's games. Here's my card if you're interested. And I think this is the moment where I was like, oh, I'm sort of in. Like I'm genuinely very curious and intrigued.
There's a beat when Ji-hoon finally wins Subway Pogs where he goes to slap the stranger, and like he grabs his hand and hands him the wand, and there's this look of such disappointment in his face that he can't slap this man.
Yeah,
and
he wanted to absolutely rail.
Like he had this realization of like the degradation for pay that he went through, and like what he subjected himself to get $75 essentially. Yeah. And it's like in that moment, all he wanted to do was wind up and like thwack that guy across the face. And like it was upsetting that he couldn't do it. Like that's kind of heartbreaking too. It's like he's down so bad, he's sunk so low that he would almost rather hit this guy in the face than get the money that he was owed.
Yeah, I feel like if I got slapped as many times as he did too, I'd be like, keep it, we're going another round. I just want to get one in.
Yeah, it's so from here we get this card. There's a little bit of story building and like almost exposition that's used. Like there's a friend who is super successful. We find out that, hey, your daughter is not going to be here next year. She is moving to the US with her stepfather and with your ex-wife. And that's, Max, you talked about inciting incident. That, almost lights the flame of, I need this money. I need to go and
it gives real
do this. And we have a phone call. Now, I joked about it a little bit in our cold open of the idea of going into a vehicle and seeing gas go in. Are either of you getting in this minivan that just has 3 people sleeping in the back of it and a man?
That's how Uber Pool used to be.
Thank you so much. 2019 golden age of Uber Pool. That's what it was, baby. You got someone making 7 stops before you get to your office.
Oh yeah, there was a kid in the front seat. If somebody wanted to go to Jack in the Box, you were all going to Jack in the Box.
Yeah, this set the tone of adding that a little bit of necessary nefariousness that we see. But I think there's nothing quite like having that terrifying moment to then having the comedy of waking up next to 455 of your newest, closest friends in the largest room of bunk beds I've ever seen in my life, all wearing the same thing.
Did we talk about how much this show cost? Because I cannot imagine, because of those 455 actors, like not a small percentage of them have speaking lines. This is insanely expensive.
So I actually have a number for you.
Okay, please.
It's estimated to be costs between 23 and 32 million dollars
just to
make this show. To make
the whole show.
To make the entire show.
That's actually I mean,
after, we've seen Game of Thrones episodes cost $5 million a piece.
I was going to say.
It's not that far off at all.
And they made this like an event.
2.4 million per episode is the budget that I'm seeing.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's not...
Pretty high.
Yeah, but like, when you see this room, that there is not... I did not sniff a hint of CGI in this room. This was a set design. Or
if it was, they actually had good animators and they weren't trying to, cut corners.
Hey, La Brea, take some fucking notes.
Your animators.
They might have. I mean, especially from this bunk bed scene, there's a pretty solid chance that they use forced perspective for all those bunk beds
for sure.
But like, yeah, I mean, you are still dealing with a massive amount of actors for this, and stunt people.
I think that one of the interesting things about this specific point in, there's so many themes in this show that we could talk about. We could talk about economic disparity. We could talk about class warfare.
We could talk about mackerel.
Yeah. But we could...
And then there's that theme that goes like, do, do, do.
Oh, my God. But one of the things that I found so interesting that was touched upon is the idea of you put yourself in this game, and there are so many people who recognize people of 456 people taken from South Korea.
Mm-hmm.
There are many people who recognize people from their past, people that they currently know, and that is just a wild idea in this show.
What blew my mind is, we start to introduce the game to our competitors. We have some of the mysterious hooded figures breaking down in very vague language the challenges they'll do. 6 games, win them all, win a massive prize. They're not going to reveal the prize amount until after the first game. And they start to project people's identities and debts on this big screen, which is just like the worst fan cam experience ever. Like, can you imagine them doing this in a Laker game?
Oh my God.
Maxwell Singer, $80,000 in student loans.
But what blows my mind to this is they're showing everyone's debts in won, how many hundreds of million, if not billion won. And you realize in the grand scheme, Ji-Hoon owes one of the smallest amounts of anyone they show.
Yeah.
And we spent the first, because this is an hour-long pilot, and it's pretty much a 30-30 split. The first 30 minutes are explaining how down bad this guy is. The last 30 minutes are Squid Game.
Yeah.
And for all that time we spent making you think that this guy is like a worthless piece of shit.
The worst.
He is nowhere near the people in that room. And that puts things into perspective too.
Totally.
Yeah. For those of you who listened and need another example, if you listen to the episode of You, we talked about how Joe Goldberg was like the 8th worst guy in that pilot.
Well, okay, he's the only one that murdered someone, so let's move him up the rankings
he
a little bit.
No one. He just maimed someone.
Right.
Now, Ji-Hoon is like the 40th lowest debt or highest debt in this show, because the highest debt, once again, thank you Google, was about $4 million in debt, which is just when they
sizable.
said 1.6 billion, I was just like, oh, that's a big number. That's a big scary number that I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I am curious from the two of you. We've talked about a few of the comedy, like the jokes that are thrown in. I think this show doesn't work as well if it's not a dark comedy, because there's a moment where a giant piggy bank comes from the ceiling.
God, that was
and
so
I
funny.
giggled. I
funny
giggled
visual.
a lot. I was just like, yep, this is exactly what I would do if I was an eccentric billionaire who just wanted to show where all my money was.
Because they are making it like TV for the people watching too. So there are like, it is a game show for the people gambling on this. And I should say too, like we didn't touch so much quite yet on the people who are fully masked, like doing all the explanation of the games and stuff like that. They're running the games. They're also doing the killing. They're providing security. They're basically enclosing a perimeter on this place. And yeah, you don't get to see who any of them are. So you don't know who is like why people are being hired for this, or like who it's for. Everything is in this entire episode. All the people who are running this game fully are masked and anonymous.
That's actually just B-roll footage inside of Netflix's office.
Yeah, if you have the mask that actually looks like a man's face, you run Netflix. Those are the rules.
That's Ted Sarandon's mask. Don't scuff it.
There is one really interesting rule that we find out, because we see this contract that everyone's signing, and it is...
There's so much paperwork in the show.
Yeah. People love paperwork.
They use an interesting amount of time. They use an interesting amount of time on the rules and paperwork for this, just so that I think like maybe there's some like necessity that they have in this that like it's 100% consensual. And I also like I think right now you start to explore the like, am I so in debt that I'm okay dying to get out of it? Like feeling for a lot of these people.
Yeah.
And no one knows what terminated or eliminated from the competition means
at this point, no. But the other rule that we find out is a game can stop at any time if there is a majority vote.
Yeah.
Which in this episode we don't see, but I'm so curious about, right? I am so curious about seeing that rule come into play. And that's like a little nugget that I'm like, okay, if we're trying to figure out if I'm going to watch another episode, I sort of want to see what a majority vote looks like and what happens to everyone.
Yeah, it's like writing a sketch. You establish the rules. You establish the rules of the universe, and then you play with it. And then, so you know that's going to come. It's Chekhov's contract.
Man, somewhere in the back rooms of this building, there is just the busiest notary you've ever seen.
So let's talk about, I think,
why you're all here. Why you're all here.
Red light, green light, right?
Hell yeah.
Or is it green light, red light? It's there's lights, and we see all of our contestants go out into almost a set design, but it's outside because we clearly see birds, and there is just a gigantic doll that is standing that then proceeds to explain the rules of our game.
God, she's an icon. That doll was everywhere.
It really haunted my dreams.
Like that
freaky.
Doll was everywhere.
So
a lot of iconography from the show that like really stuck with people.
Secret game of the week right now, which is red light, green light. I'm curious to hear how you are going to play this, because it's very simple, right? We see that if you move, you're eliminated.
Yeah.
We don't know what that means yet, but your goal is you have 5 minutes to get across the line without being eliminated. So what are you two gentlemen doing?
Oh, I thought Secret Game of the Week was going to be Red Light, Green Light podcast. Like, you have to stop talking when Jeff says red light.
Which I'm curious, do you have any thoughts of like what your strategy might be?
Well, I want to go old man style, like, because he just went slow and steady wins the race across. You could also tell that he very like seeing the ending of the show and knowing like the spoilers and all that stuff. I'm sorry, not the spoilers, but the reveal. You know that he understands the consequences of this immediately. Because he's like smiling, having a great time. He's like, yeah, let's do this. Everyone else seems to be extremely mortified by the possibility of death. I want to say I'm going old man style, but I think crawling is my move. I think I'm crawling and then hitting the deck as soon as she turns around, just so I for sure don't move, have no gravity aspect to it.
So, Max, I'm curious about you.
I'm just going steady pace, 1 foot in front of the other. I'm not doing any mad dashes. I'm not getting on the ground where I have a risk of getting
Trampled.
Yeah.
or like having to rely on like core strength, or it's like my elbow getting a little itchy or scuffy from the dirt. So I think I'm just going steady, below medium pace, foot in front of the other. That's the way I can keep the most control.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what this scene ends up doing is we see 2 of our contestants joking that they're going to bet each other for like a couple 100,000 won of who's going to finish first. Once we see that first death happen, we understand the true consequences. And very similar to, we've talked about Battle Royale. When we see someone get straight murdered in front of us, you understand that fight or flight, like instinct that you have within yourself. And we see a lot of people die.
Yeah.
Because they have that flight instinct.
Like more than 50% of the entire game is eliminated in this round.
Well, that's just good screenwriting. We don't.
I guess. Damn.
Yeah.
What I love in this
that's
scene,
the best budget
though,
consciousness.
What I love in this scene is the choice when we get that first kill shot. It's wide framed out. You see it from a distance, and it is just birds chirping and bang, and it is so intense.
And you know who's doing it too.
There's no. It's like, oh God, how do we put this? It's like the fact that people in the game are in such shock they don't even realize what is happening, but it's such an abrasive moment, and I love the choice to wide frame it because it's just like you see this shocking thing happening in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, this show was shot beautifully for some of the angles that they chose. Some of the one of the scenes we didn't talk about was like them taking the photographs in this elaborate, almost maze that just was there. Right? It wasn't a game. It was just
the MC Escher stairs.
Yeah. And I love this scene because it really comes down to the animalistic sense that we all have to survive. And we either embrace death by looking it straight in the eye and, going towards it. Or in many cases, there were the people who did not hear the rules of the game that were established.
Yeah.
Ran away and died because of this.
It is morbid. It is an absolute bloodbath.
Yeah.
And for all of the kind of dark humor, it takes such a hard left in that moment. Like this show becomes so like things are never going to be the same from that moment. Like it's a point of no return. I know I've mentioned the directing a few times, so I think it's worth shouting out that Huang actually won Outstanding Director for a Drama Series at the Primetime Emmys in 2022 for this episode.
Yeah.
Becoming the first Korean director to take home that award. And yeah, it's like the whole pacing of this episode works so well because it's like 30 minutes in, we're finally getting into the dystopian Squid Game. 45 minutes in, we're 3/4 of the way through, and there's an absolute massacre happening. And now you're like, how is this going to end? Like you are racing towards the finale of this pilot and you actually are on edge because you don't know what's going to happen next. Like all of your expectations have now been completely subverted.
Absolutely.
And all while this is happening, not only is there all this death that's happening, but we've mentioned there's this show being filmed. There is a man watching almost from a command center with I'm not gonna lie. I want one of those little jazz machines. The jazz machine seemed pretty great.
That?
I don't know where I get one. If you're a frequent flyer, you're listening, and you know where to get a jazz machine, let me know because I
guess
want
this
one.
This seems to be like a commentary of so basically what Jeff is describing is that there's like a little marionette automatron that plays
imagine a shrunken down version of It's a Small World. but
Yeah.
it only plays bad jazz.
Okay,
Now,
so imagine if the Country Bear Jamboree was humans.
And they can only play Frank Sinatra covers.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically it's a very like slow rendition of Fly Me to the Moon, performed by a woman, and it is superimposed over all these people gruesomely dying, which feels a little bit like a Tarantino movie. Like that does seem like the type of death that they're filming. And I wonder if it's a commentary on how we societally disconnect from like watching people die on social media at this
Possibly.
point. Because that's 100% like, that's what it felt like for me, in the sense that like, oh yeah, we're going to watch the most gruesome thing you could possibly imagine. Like just watching hundreds of people get wiped out, but they're going to enjoy it with jazz music and whiskey and stuff like that.
Well, that's just it. I think with the little jazz marionette set, it's like, this is just a tchotchke on their desk. This is just a day at the office. Like, instead of listening to a podcast at your desk, I don't know, perhaps TV Pilot's License, find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, wherever you get podcasts from. They're listening to Frank Sinatra covers while they're just watching dailies of 200 people get shot in the back.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more, Max. And what I do want to add to that is like and subscribe and comment and leave us a review and share it with your friends.
Subscriptions really help us. We don't want to have to do Squid Game.
I really like my life and don't want to kill Max and Rich so that I win the $34 million.
If we get enough money on the Patreon, or on our eventual Patreon, we will send Jeff to Squid Game.
Are there other examples that you could think of besides Tarantino using Steelers Wheel, Stuck in the Middle with You, and Reservoir Dogs?
I hate
really,
that
like,
song just because of that movie.
Jazzy up tempo or like ballad with just like gruesome murder. Like I want to see people just get like shot to hell in a total eclipse of the heart. I feel like that rules. Like I can only think of two off the top of my head, but it's like that just feels like a really fun contradiction.
There's a movie that's directed by Bobcat Goldthwait called God Bless America, where they do that a lot. It's very much like very slow motion, like sniper deaths, basically to like some pop songs or something. I feel like this is like a trope in a lot of movies now. Tarantino was first one off my head because like I feel like, I guess also like Goodfellas and stuff like that. They constantly kill people to rock and roll music.
So
in that movie,
couple of movies that come off the top of my head, Natural Born Killers has a wild soundtrack. Like Bob Dylan is just thrown in to that movie, and
I can't believe they made him kill people.
Yeah, no. Yeah, man, I'm gonna kill you. I'm so sorry.
The guns they are slinging.
And then Smokin' Aces, which is that came out like 17 or 18 years ago, but that also has some songs where you're just like, oh, that's an interesting choice to be right now.
Maybe it's just like an early an early aughts trope too of like, I don't know. It sounds like The Kingsman to me. It sounds like
I think they used Ballroom Blitz.
Yes, they did use Ballroom Blitz.
It sounds like Boondock Saints. That seems like a type of movie that has that kind of thing. It's very of that ilk.
Let us know what pop songs you want to murder people to.
Leave it in the comments.
Oh God, we'll have to report you. Sorry, those are the rules.
Report you to Spotify.
I want to go back to our protagonist because we see Ji-hoon initially be frightened because we've seen him be terrified in the face of violence throughout this show, and it's at the coercing of his childhood friend, it seems, that is also in this predicament, that he's able to be brave. And gentlemen, I know you're going to groan when I say this, but I'm going to talk about our daddy of the week, and that is contestant 199. Contestant 199, who saved Ji-hoon from death by grabbing his shirt collar and holding him, and the amount of core strength, shoulder complex strength, all of this is where, coming in as a personal trainer, I was just like, This man, get him into a powerlifting competition. He's going to wipe the floor with everyone.
That dude
That
was doing
man's taking
Pilates.
all the groceries up in one fell swoop.
Yes,
No
he
two
is,
trips for him.
He is the hero we all need. But
Cancel his debts. Cancel his debts.
At the end of our pilot, we see Ji-hoon survives. His friend survives. Some of the other characters we were introduced to in this pilot, like contestant number 1, all survive. But to the rest of our, the people we did not meet, at the end of 5 minutes, they are all killed. And that is our pilot as we see our stadium of sorts being closed, and we zoom out on a remote island.
We see Pokemon Stadium retract the roof.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm very aware this is probably CGI and not actually like a crane shot to pull away, but it is such a fun ending, because like for a show that basically every like 15 to 18 minutes introduces a like big twist, they leave you on the biggest one of all. I would say more so than the murders of, not knowing where we are, this mysterious underground layer on an island. And yeah, if you don't want to hit next episode when
You're
they
nuts.
do that pull-out shot
that's
to end
crazy.
the episode, I don't know what's the matter with you.
Or you're fully desensitized to violence. That could be it as well. Or it's
So-
like, this is fine, but it's no battle royale.
So, for both of you, I'm curious, were there any things that you loved about this pilot that maybe we did not discuss? And I can kick us off super simply with, I love the soundtrack of this pilot. I think it is it's just a great example of building tension and building a moment to its true, the true feeling that you need to have in that moment. And I was like, oh, I really like this. What do I know this person? This entire soundtrack was made by the composer Zhang Zheil, who also did all of the music for Parasite, which is an amazing movie that I recommend that everyone watches, that has very similar themes to this movie.
That dude is killing it.
So, yeah, like, the music in this show was just bangers. And, like, also, sometimes, there's themes and they try to hit them over the head with you. But the idea that we start our show with horse racing and betting on animals, and now, come to find out in some shape or form that people who have numbers on them across their chest are being bet on, like horses. Whoa! It's you know what? It hits. It's good, and it was done well enough.
Who's going to call our protagonist a dumbass for not running fast enough?
You got shot in the head. One guy got shot in the shoulder. You can keep on going.
That's just another day at Santa Anita.
Oh my god.
Max, I'm curious from your perspective.
I think I talked about this a little bit earlier on, but I just wanted to really highlight it. The fact that we have a protagonist in Ji-hoon who is part of this hero's journey, is kind of like learning in real time how complicated life is, and we make his problems in the first half of the show out to be the biggest things in the world. Like, his problems are worse than anyone else's, and he's so jealous of his childhood friend who's successful. And then we meet this childhood friend, Sang-woo, and we learn that Mr. Successful Businessman is actually in huge trouble for embezzling hundreds of millions of won from clients and investors, and he's a crook and a criminal, and he's probably more desperate than Ji-hoon. We need actual hardened criminals, and it's watching a protagonist's worldview change in real time that I think this pilot does so well. It's long. It is an hour on the nose. It's not a TV hour. It's a full hour. It is a long pilot episode. It's short by USA standards, but it's
USA Network. Let's just clarify.
USA Network, not USA country.
Future home of Suits LA.
It's fascinating to watch someone's worldview changing in real time in a way that's really good character development, while also fitting in everything that we come to know about Squid Game. Like there's
Mhm.
so much, but it doesn't feel overly crammed.
Rich, I'm curious, what any things that you loved about this pilot that we didn't discuss?
I think this is like slightly less tangible than both of yours, but like, this show debuted to a truly, truly massive audience. Like it was like number one on like almost every like regional aspect of Netflix for like a really long time. They do a great job of making it feel big. They make it feel like an event. They make it feel like this is extremely coordinated. This is technologically advanced. This is like something that is it like aside from the life or death stakes, it feels big and that you actually are drawn to the competition aspect, not just the like I don't know how to describe not just like the story aspect. Like you're actually drawn to the competition. And I think that like they do a great job of that for me.
Yeah. So I'm curious if either of you have wait a minute moments. Mine is, if you're gonna go and gamble, have limits. Only, don't go with a friend who's an enabler, because sometimes that is the worst thing that you can have when you go gambling. Rich, any from you?
I mean, I don't think there's too many wait a minute moments for me. I feel like this is like just such a clean pilot. I don't think I have anything in particular. And I really looked. I really did. Oh, wait. Oh, well, I guess the fact that they play Fly Me to the Moon while people are getting blown away in slow motion. I'm not a huge fan of violence and like the media I consume anyway. So that for me was like, oh, okay. I guess I'll watch this. Seemed culturally important.
Max, I'm curious. Any wait a minute moments for you?
I mean, besides the whole like 250 murders happening in rapid fire session, I look. I got nothing else. I think that it earns its beats. I think that it earns its runtime. It's really clear and concise world building. I think that something with Squid Game, and maybe it's a little bit of like American ignorance, is that everyone treated it like it was this like phenomenon that came out of nowhere when it's an incredibly established writer director. Our lead actor, Lee Jung Jae, who plays Ji Hyun, is like a Korean heartthrob with like 20 plus years of experience. He actually played the Keanu Reeves role in the original version of The Lake House, which I didn't know was a Korean film until I started researching the show. Like this didn't come out of nowhere. It just found backers and financiers who helped it get to where it needed to go.
So we do have an in-flight question, and it's a super simple one.
Do you think you could play 6 games on an island to win a cash prize?
Nope, surprisingly not that. Our in-flight question was, we watched what Ji Hyun's price was, and that was $75 to receive multiple slaps across the face. And my question for both of you is very simple. What is your price to be slapped in the face one time without retort, without slapping someone back? What is that number that you have in mind?
Put your wallet away. I'll try anything once. Go for it.
So Rich,
it depends who's doing it, but like I'm whatever. I don't.
So
this is free of charge. Put the Venmo away. Just donate what you want. But
yeah. So what I'll say is, if you see Rich along the streets of Los Angeles,
there's only one globally.
Yeah,
there's one. If you miss your shot, I'm coming after you.
Max, I'm curious from your perspective.
I'm not sure if this number got changed in the new ratified contracts, but the day player day rate minimum was $125. So I'm going to set it at $125. I'm going to set it at just a day on set.
Yeah, I think that, you know what? I'll take that $125 too. That's a really nice meal out. Like you get slapped in the face and then you can be like, you know what? We're going to a nice dinner. And I might even get 2 drinks at dinner this time. Well, thanks for that in-flight question. We'll talk a little bit more about how to submit those at the end of the episode. But let's talk a little bit more about the history of this show. Because this show's history is ongoing. As Max talked about, there's been 1 season and 9 episodes that have debuted, but season 2 is currently in progress, which
Really?
is...
They just dropped the first teasers for it. Netflix
Yeah.
just dropped social media teasers for season 2. It's supposed to come out later this year.
Oh.
And there also is a spin-off, Squid Games The Challenge, that came out that was a live action version of this show where, there are multiple lawsuits against the production of this show, people who said they were in inhumane conditions. And you can do that research on your own because we're just talking about the scripted version of this show. So we did talk a little bit about the music composition for this show. The marketing for this show, holy shit. We could do an entirely separate podcast about how this show was marketed, including live Squid Games reenactment in like a mall where you could earn a month of Netflix for free if you did one of the challenges successfully, like the doll just being flown to different places around the world to terrify people.
The doll was dating Leo DiCaprio for a little bit. It was weird.
Yeah, then it turned
the money from
28
PlayStation for using all their icons on their faces.
Oh my god. But Rich, you asked like how much this was watched, and I want to talk about that a little bit more. So Netflix estimated that there were about 111 million different members of Netflix watched this after the first 17 days of availability.
Only in the first week and 2 weeks and a half?
Yeah, then it went to 142 after 28 days, which surpasses the 82 million people that had then watched the previously most watched, which was Bridgerton. So how many hours of this show do you think were watched in the first 28 days? I'll let you guys just...
Well, it's 9 episodes. They're each 1 hour, so I would say 9 hours. Oh, you mean combined. You mean total.
Yes, combined.
I don't know. Multiply your number by 9. I don't do math.
Rich, what about you?
I'm just looking up that there's an estimated 260 million global subscribers at over half watch this.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry that I was looking this up like while you guys are talking, but that's fucking insane.
So to answer my question that I asked to the two of you, there were an estimation of over 1.65 billion hours of this show watched in the first 28 days of it being available. I do want to talk about awards because this is one of those interesting things where we have a Korean show that was brought to the United States, and it's being involved in a multiple different award shows, both Korean in nature, the United States, some in the UK, because of Netflix being this gigantic streaming platform. There were 53 nominations and 34 wins. Just a hell of a winning percentage. And a lot of the reason why you're probably like, why isn't it hypothetically higher? Is because of the foreign nature of this show. There are many categories of different award shows that we talk about that don't really have much to give as far as just like, hey, it's the limitation, and it's truly unfair of the idea of like, oh, well, it's a foreign show. You know what? It gets stuck in this category, but it did win a couple of major awards just for our audience to understand. 3 SAG Awards, 2 Primetime Emmys, 4 Creative Arts Awards Emmys. It also won a Golden Globe as well. And in some of these instances, it was for direction, and a lot of the nominations, it was for portrayal in a dramatic TV show. And I cannot emphasize enough how amazing it is what the barriers that the show broke were, but there's more to be broken, and I hope that season 2 is able to continue those efforts.
Yeah, I think just 6 Primetime Emmy nominations. I'm looking at this now. 6 Primetime Emmy nominations, 2 wins. You've got you've got outstanding drama series. You've got a win for lead actor for Lee Jung Jae. You've got a win in directed category for Wong Dong Hyo. You've got nominations in supporting actor for the actor who played the old man, as well as who played Sang Woo. You've got other like guest spots, supporting actress, writing nominations. Like the fact that this show like crashed the party and like got its flowers amongst like this is like the one year that someone from Succession didn't win outstanding actor in a drama series.
Yep.
Like in the last like 5 years. Like that's crazy to think about.
Yeah, so that's the history that I have of this show, right? Like, we are getting more of it, for sure. This is a global phenomenon. We're going to get more of Squid Games, The Challenge, as well. Good luck on the lawsuits to all that are participating. Maybe you will not be eliminated. But, Rich, what is your game of the week?
All right. Before you sit 2 envelopes... I wanted to lighten the mood because I knew that we were going to finish this episode with an awful lot of death before we got into the awards and stuff like that. So I just want to talk about childhood games of the world, just a little bit of trivia. Also, you guys have been way too good at the trivia questions that I've been doing fairly recently, so I just want to fuck with you both.
So we're going global.
Yeah. All right. So both of you guys can answer these. I made them pretty difficult. I also didn't do a ton of research, but I think it'll be fun for you guys to play. All right. First one is called Ogle Mata, or Statue in this country, is a game played essentially like comedy freeze tag. One person is it, the other kids scatter and have to assume poses of famous statues like the Statue of Liberty and stuff like that, even using props. The person who is it tries to make them laugh and move to knock them out. Very similar to red light, green light. The last statue remaining is it. What country is this played? Japan, Brazil, Italy, Greece.
I'm gonna go with Greece. They got a lot of them their statues.
See, I want to go with Greece too, but just for kicks, let's call it Brazil.
Oh, Greece too with Michelle Pfeiffer. It's great.
Yeah,
God damn it.
It's the better Greece in all honesty.
It is Greece. That was the easiest question. So buckle up.
God, that game sounds like every single improv class warm up.
We all know that the ancient Greeks invented Zip Zap Zop.
Zip Zap Zopoles.
God damn it. Pilolo is a timed seeking game where the leader hides pennies or rocks while the other kids have their backs turned. The kids then have to turn around, search on the ground for a penny or rock or whatever, and race across the finish line first to win. That kid becomes it. What country is this played? Argentina, Ghana, Malaysia, Guatemala.
Can you repeat those countries again, Rich?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Argentina, Ghana, Malaysia, Guatemala.
I'm going to say Malaysia.
Fuck it. Guatemala.
Both of you guys are wrong. Yeah, it's Ghana. What's up? For anyone listening, I have come up with 70 of these fucking games. It is so hard to find questions that are difficult enough to get it past. All right. A regional version of rock, paper, scissors is ant, man, elephant. Elephant beats man, man beats ant, but ant beats elephant because they can crawl inside its ears and bite it and shit. What continent is this played? Asia, Australia, Africa, South America.
I'm going Australia.
I mean, ant, man, elephant. I'm going to say Asia.
It is Asia. They play it in Sumatra,
Max.
the island outside of Indonesia.
Max, I just want you to think for 1 second. Where are there elephants in
That's
Australia?
the thing. That's the thing. Is that feels like it's a trick question. It feels like it's a trick question. I went for the places where you didn't find elephants or pachyderm.
There's elephants in Africa. I said Africa too.
That's true, but I also said Asia because you already said Ghana.
I assumed places with elephants were red flags. Or red herrings, not red flags, red herrings.
Oh my god. Well, Rich, thank you for your game of the week.
I wanted to lighten the mood a bit.
I appreciate it, and now I have new games to play. But I'm genuinely curious, as our flight comes to a land, I have two additional questions for both of you. And one is based off of the pilot. You know, Max sort of told us what his plans are, but are you going to continue watching more of this show? And then, secondly, you know, it seems like Squid Games is a phenomenon that we're not going to stop. But should they make
No matter how many lawsuits, we're not stopping.
Should they make a second season of the show? Maybe leave it as one supposedly excellent piece of television that exists.
If I'm watching this for the very first time, 100% I'm watching number 2. Like, you literally, how can you not? This is one of those shows, if you started at 11 p.m., like, all right, I guess I'm watching until the sun comes up. Like, there's no way you can't put this down. Like, when I started watching, I don't think I stopped. And there's a good chance that I watched this, like, while I actively had COVID and just, like, killed 10 hours with it. But when it comes to a second season, it better be different as hell. This is like such a great season. They hit so many surprises and action moments, and like, you can't just pick a different person with debts to go do something similar of a situation. Like, it has to be extremely different. Otherwise, I'm not really buying in.
Max, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, this going back and rewatching this pilot for the first time since watching the show during the phenomenon in 21, it's so well structured, it's so well paced, it knows how to like grab you as an audience, it knows how to leave you on such a fun cliffhanger. It's so much fun to watch. It's just so enticing. I'm actually really excited for season 2. My hope is that this is not just Ji-Hoon returns to the arena. I hope, like as Rich said, it's not just we're dropping someone new in here and kind of resetting the world. This show does such a great job of world building in just 60 minutes, let alone everything else it does in the subsequent 8 episodes that follow. I would be excited to see how they even expand upon that. Like, if season 1 is like the micro look at the world of Squid Games, I want to see what the macro version is. I want to see them zoom that lens out even further at the end of this pilot and see what we can uncover.
Yeah, and for myself, this was the first time I watched this pilot ever.
Shut the fuck up.
It is?
Yes, it is. I didn't want to let you guys know that.
You were somehow one of the half of Netflix users that didn't watch this?
I've been busy. I just want to say that I have
for
been
2
busy.
years.
Yes.
Hold on. You never watched Squid Game?
No, I never watched it.
So what do you think of the creep? What do you think of the creepy doll? What do you think of the old Jeff? We have so much to talk about. Run the track back. We're doing a second podcast.
God damn.
So what I will say, as a completely independent, not knowing what happens at the end of episode 9, human being, as is like the goal of this podcast, is that, yeah, I want to watch episode number 2. 100%. It will be happening. As far as more of the show coming out, Max is still in shock. He's like, what are we going to do for the next 2 hours?
Watch us on every show we've done. We pick like fucking Northern Exposure, and Jeff's like, I've seen the first 7 seasons. He didn't know that about me, and he hasn't seen Squid Game.
So let's talk a little bit about making more of this show, right? I think that we are coming to a point in the world of streaming where we're at a crossroads, and this is very important. I mean, there are some shows that streaming networks make that I think are amazing. And then there's something called beating a dead horse. And I am terrified that we are going to fall into that trap of, well, it's, September. That means the new seasons of Squid Games is coming out. Yeah. And we're going to get season 5 and season 6. And luckily they're doing this with adults. So, we're not going to have to go through that weird part of strange. We're not going to have to go through the weird Stranger Things thing where we just pretend that children were children when they were actually full-grown adults. But what I'll say is, make sure you fucking nail it, right? Because you only get one shot to do another season of this. And if you fuck it up,
If
like,
it's clearly a cash grab.
if it is, yeah, exactly. If it is clearly, as you two have said, oh, we're gonna focus on another downtrodden person who's in debt, or we're gonna do the Ghostbusters. It's all women. Like, it's like, sorry, but like, it's all
all
the
woman
cast.
Squid Game is
Yeah,
not the
all
equality
women-
they're looking for.
It's but my point is, don't try to find a gimmick. Try to find a story that hasn't been told yet. And if you don't do that, and audience, you know, if you've watched this and are also surprised I haven't seen this show, put it in the comments. But if you, in all honesty, if you don't nail it, then you kill this world. You destroy it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this episode of TV so much that I would be very upset if I hear, hey, Squid Game Season 2 is the worst, right?
But no pressure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No
Trust
pressure.
the person who watched 7 seasons of Psych but didn't watch one episode of Squid Game.
Yeah, exactly. Right? You know, I've seen nearly every episode of Bones, and take my opinion. Take my opinion.
Well,
as that.
in Bones fashion, she hasn't seen this either.
But like, I will say, if I am pitching this without seeing any other pieces of the show, I want to have I want to know more about this network of people that's in the background. I want to see their perspective. I've always been fascinated by the concept of the henchman and their life outside of being a henchman, right? And like that's, I know that sounds so dumb, but it is actually, it's something that I genuinely think about. So yeah, do something unique, do something new.
It's very New York City, 10 million stories of you.
Yeah. But that is our episode. Our flight has come to a land, and I'd love to make sure that the folks who are listening to this episode, one, we are going to be continuing International Month for the next 3 episodes after this, so make sure that you are tuning in. We have some great things coming up, and make sure to subscribe so that you get notified when these podcasts come out. But Max, where can folks find you if they want to learn a little bit more about you?
You can find me betting on horses 6 and 8 in third race, and on all things social media at Maxwell Singh.
Rich, what about you?
You can find me on Instagram at Damn That's Rich. You can also find me packing heat to my 8-year-old birthday party.
Oh my god!
You can also find original sketch comedy from Max and me over on TikTok at Dadwagon Comedy. I'm currently editing our latest sketch right now.
And you can find me enjoying street meat anywhere, really.
Okay.
Go and have street meat. It's
Seems
a great
legit.
It's a great meat to have on your birthday. But if you are looking for me on social media, you can find me at Run Jeff Run. You can find the TV Pilot's License anywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as on YouTube, social media, at TV Pilot's License. If you have a question about our show, maybe about the next episode, or maybe you have an opinion on what we should talk about next, make sure to shoot us an email at tvpilotslicense@gmail.com, or give us a call at 213-290-1713. Make sure to watch out for our Instagram. We like to give sneak peeks, and we'll actually be putting up a schedule of some of the other upcoming episodes, so that you can watch along, or maybe watch before you listen. But with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again soon. And until then, want to play a game?
Green light. My streak of trying to guess what Jeff is going to say has ended.